Welcome to the River's Edge, everyone. Today, I'm so excited to interview Michelle Karen. She has a long list of a resume. She's a shaman, she's an astrologer, she's a psychic medium, she's written 7 books, she's lived in 8 different countries, she's been an actress. I had to look at my paper because I can't remember. You have so much stuff. An actress, a model, you do yoga, you've been playing the piano, you're a red belt in Taekwondo. You write in the Sedona Journal. I love the Sedona Journal. That's super cool. I love that. And you do tarot and numerology, and you lead groups to Peru and Bolivia, which I think is pretty awesome. So, welcome.
Thank you. And I also have a shamanic school on top of
And a
everything,
shamanic
like it's not
school.
enough.
So
Yeah.
how
Yes.
do you have, so clearly you're not a couch potato.
No, actually, I'm a tough act to follow. I'm a nomad, so I'm always on the road. So I've been grounded for the past 5 months with, this whole virus situation, which has been very unlike me because I'm usually never more than a month in a place.
Yeah, and it said on your website, it was saying that you you go to Finland a lot, right?
Yeah, I actually live in 3 countries. So I live in the US and Arizona, I live in Finland, and I live in France. So I'm navigating. I'm going to to Finland in 3 days actually, for 2 months.
Oh, so the borders are
If,
open
for me, they are, yes, because I
for
live
you,
there and I have
only
a
you.
passport.
Oh, okay. Only Michelle Karen can leave the US.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
Exactly.
And it's Helsinki in Finland.
Helsinki, yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
I hear
that's where I
that's a
was
cool
born. Yes.
town.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
nice.
beautiful. Especially at this time of the year, it's stunning. It's just magical. It's enchanted. So that's how people, Finns who marry foreigners bring their spouse, their prospective spouse, to Finland in the summer. And the prospective spouse falls madly in love with Finland. And then they get married. And then reality sinks in because winter begins. And then it's 10 months of misery.
Yeah, you can't do it. That's why you live in Arizona too.
Exactly. I was very cold most of my life.
Oh, nice. So I'm so excited. Well, one other thing. Where in France are you?
In Brittany, the west of France. You see the arm? I'm in the armpit of France,
Okay.
on the Atlantic Ocean.
I love France.
Yes.
I love it, love it, love it.
Yeah, it's very
Oh.
beautiful. Yes.
Okay, so I want to talk about astrology, shamanism, your psychic medium work, and then if you're okay with it, talk about some current events if we get to it. But
Yes, of course.
first thing, astrology. Can you tell us what it is?
Well, when people say I don't believe in astrology, I want to say I don't believe in astrology either, because there is nothing to believe in. You have to see it and it works. That when a specific configuration happens in the sky, specific events happen on Earth in human affairs, and they're always the same. So it's actually based on mathematics, and you can see cycles. Like, for example, right now in 2020, we are in a Saturn and Pluto are in the same spot in the sky in Capricorn, conjunct, so that's within 10 degrees of each other. And the last time this happened was in 1982. That was the time of the Great Depression. The time before was 1947. That was right after World War II. And the time before that was 1914, which was the beginning of World War One. So the way this works is that you would look at what happened when this aspect occurred previously, and that's going to give indications of what we are up against and how to ride elegantly those changes, because these are not, it's not fatalistic, and we have to understand that we always have free will. And if we understand what is going on in the sky, then we also, and what happened the last time this happened, then we can start dealing with it in a different way. So it doesn't mean that there's necessarily a war or a depression, but it means that there is a very great risk of that, and that we should be forewarned so that we can be forearmed. So astrology the basis of astrology is that everything has a date, a time, and a place of birth, and that gives the blueprint for our lives, or for an event, because everything has a chart, an astrological chart, which is a picture of the heavens when we were born. So a project has a chart, a building has a chart, a person has a chart, an animal has a chart. Everything that has a date, a time, and a place of birth has a chart. And that is sort of the blueprint for our lives. This is how we need to look at it. But what astrology is going to tell you is that it's going to tell you it's raining outside. And then you can choose, do you want to experience the rain, or do you want to grab an umbrella and a raincoat, or do you want to stay home with a book and and drink your hot chocolate by the fire? So that's where our free will is. But the big lines of our lives, our character, our tendencies are all written at birth. But then it's what we do with those that are going to determine the kind of life we have. And if we believe in reincarnation, the kind of future life we're going to have. Does that make
So
sense?
no, it does. But I do have some questions. So you read your birth chart and you say this is the kind of personality traits or this is the kind of person you are, right? And but then you
Yes.
have what about your when you grow up in a certain environment? Won't that all, how do you know like what the environment is going to be that you grow up in that you're going to change and you're going to depending on what you're living, what environment you're living in?
That's a very good question, Kelly, because really that cannot be seen in the chart. You cannot see the social status of someone. You cannot see, what kind of education, but you can see the kind of parents they're going to have. And there's been, and also how they are going to relate to money. Even if they were born in a very poor environment, they may become very wealthy. And we've seen a lot of people be able to do that. In astrology, there is a study of what is called astral twins. And these are two babies born on the same date, same day, same month, same year, in the same hospital at the same time, but from with different parents, of course. They are not, they are astral twins, but they are not, real twins or regular twins.
Right.
So they have different parents. And there was, for example, when Henry VIII was born, he was born at exactly the same time as the child of the housekeeper. And of course, one was king and one was, a pauper, if you want to see it like that. And it's pretty amazing because when you look at you run their lives in parallel, you will find that they got sick with the same illness at the same time. When one became king, the other one took over, entered the job that his parents had before. They both got married at the same time with a woman with the same first name. So, and they died at the same time of the same illness. So it's like those, and there's been countless studies of those astral twins, and every time the same coincidences, which can't be coincidences when there are so many of them, happen. So that is the proof that there is a specific destiny that we came with that made us be born at a certain time under a certain, constellation. But then it's what we do with that that's going to determine a person, and character is destiny, but it's also what we do. It's like having all the ingredients to make a cake. Well, one person is going to burn their cake and another is going to make a sumptuous, incredible cake. So it's not the ingredients the problem, it's the consciousness that we use this for. And for example, a person could have the same chart as a cauliflower, but of course the consciousness of a cauliflower is going to be different from the consciousness of a human. So this is where the differences start to occur. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, because free will definitely plays a role in it, right? So I've had two astrological readings in my life, and none of them, none of it was right either time. Like nothing happened that they said what happened. A lot of it, the background wasn't right. So maybe it's just the wrong person didn't know how to read it. But I was like, okay, I'm missing something because I'm not getting it's not working for me.
Well, it's several things. First of all, how accurate is your time of birth? Do you know your time of birth?
2:33 p.m. I have my birth
Oh,
certificate.
okay, so it's very accurate. Okay, perfect. And you know, I assume your date and your place, right?
January 13th, like you're 18.
Okay, perfect. Okay,
And
perfect.
here in
Well,
California.
the Well, it all depends, of course. It's an interpretation. Even though the map is going to be exactly the same from astrologer to astrologer, because that's mathematically based, you read ephemerid and it's connected to the stars and the position of the stars and the planets at any given moment. But of course, it's the talent or not of the astrologer, the person reading it. It's the same. Like, a movie acted badly will have a very different impact than the same movie acted well by actors who are very professional and know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can judge astrology on that. And also, everything is potential. So we need to remember that there is a potential of, for example, people ask me often, when am I going to meet the love of my life? Or when should I move? Or when should I start this new business? Because timing is very important in astrology. Like, for example, people blame a relationship dissolving to the fact that they got married. Well, I would blame it on the date they chose to get married rather than getting married.
Really? It's that
Because Oh, yes, it's very important. It's very important to decide, for example, when you're going to be living with someone, when you are, in a relationship, if you think of it, there is when you meet, then there is when you first kiss, and when you move in together, then when you get engaged, and when you get married. So all these are landmarks that have each a specific shot.
Yeah, I've
And
always heard
if
people
we,
with money do that too. They know when to invest and I've heard it from the financial point of view a
absolutely.
lot.
And it's important. It's important. Timing is very important. In the Ecclesiastes, they say there's a time to weep, there's a time to be happy, there's a time to work, there's a time to rest. And everything has cycles. Timing of things is very important. Um, Anyway, the whole thing is that it's also potential. So you have to see that there is a possibility that there are times that are better for meeting people. There are times where it's better to be home alone. There's times where it's better to start a project, times where it's better to lay low, times. And the potential is there. But for example, when astrology says there's going to be wind outside, if your sailboat is not ready to sail, well, that's great, but nothing is going to happen. But if your sailboat is ready and then you can take advantage of the winds, then you are going to be able to have a wonderful journey across the water.
Right, right. How do we
So
know what
it's
the time is though? Someone like myself.
Well, that's where you go to an astrologer, and that's the beauty of astrology is that with ephemerides, which are the positions of the planets every day, it's going to tell you exactly when a cycle is going to end, when another one is going to begin, when specific transits, which are the positions of the planets in the sky, how they relate to the planets in your birth chart, because we are each a crystallization of a moment in time and space. Then that is how you are. That's a timing. That's like the personal horoscope, which has to do with timing that each person has.
And that's regardless of what's going on externally. No, that's whatever's going on here doesn't change what good timing is for you.
No, yeah, it doesn't because, well, okay, let's rephrase that because it's based on the position of the planets in the sky
Hmm.
as they relate to your personal chart. So even in a time when globally there is a Great Depression or everybody is dying or whatever's going on in the world, my chart could be saying that this is an amazing time for me, and it's a time of abundance and it's a time of happiness. And I see that a lot. Like, for example, people go through a divorce and it's a catastrophe in their life. And then you look at their chart, and their chart is saying that this is a very happy time. And they're like, well, no, it's not. The love of my life left me. But I have come over the years, because I've been doing this since I was 14 years old, I've come over the years to understand that astrology never lies, which means that even if from our personal perspective, it feels like a very horrible time, it could be an amazing time. And if we look back, we'll realize that, wow, that was such a blessing that this divorce happened when it happened. Even though at the time it did not feel like that, and we cried all the tears of our body.
Right, right. That's what I was going to ask you too. Like, how can this help people during these crazy times right now? How can astrology help them?
Enormously. It can help enormously because the more we know, I think a lot of people are feeling so powerless right now because there's travel bans, because people lost their jobs, because there's so much uncertainty. Every time we open, the news, we get a different kind of information, and something else has erupted, or another law has passed, or something else happened. So when, we could feel very disempowered because all of a
Sure.
sudden it's like everything, the ground is shaking under our feet. But when you start to look at your chart and see what is going on for you personally, you will know that you have the chance to change things. You have power. You have the ability to be in charge of your own life. And it could be, and it's the year of the rat in Chinese astrology. This is a wonderful year for starting a new business, for reinventing the manner in which we work. I mean, I don't know if you knew about Zoom a year ago. I did not. Even 6 months ago, I didn't
Well,
know about
I'm in
Zoom.
the corporate
And
world, so
now,
I know about Zoom.
you do, but I didn't. And all of a sudden, I had to learn all sorts of things, and I had to figure out other ways because normally I travel enormously. I do conferences all over the world. All of a sudden, I had to be home, and how do I connect with people from being home? So I had to reinvent my work, which was wonderful. And a lot of
Yeah.
people have had to do that. And we've discovered wonderful things in the process. We started connecting with people we never would have connected with. We started realizing that maybe we had a little more time to sleep, to rest. We could take it easy. And this year, we should very much pay attention to our health. We should sleep enough, drink a lot of water, eat as organic as possible, and be very focused on our well being and not go to any kind of extreme this year. It's not even a year for conflicts. It's a year to clear, whatever toxic people we may have in our lives. It's a year to be very focused on what is essential, what is important, what is going to enrich our lives and help us move forward, and what is keeping us back.
Is this in an effort to move towards the new world that we're going towards? Like out with the old and with the new?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we are in this period that started in 2017 with this Saturn Uranus transit. And Saturn Uranus has to do with the old and the new. How do we go into the new, but also what do we keep of the old that still works? And it's going to end at the end of 2022 with another Uranus-Saturn aspect, Jupiter. So Jupiter has to do with integrity. That's why there's so many talks about integrity or lack thereof, and corruption and underground things that have been going on that are now erupting to the surface. And that's also connected to Pluto conjunct Saturn, because that we have this whole year that is very much connected to all those things that we're embarrassed about, all those very dark things, evil things that were buried under the surface that nobody knew about, and literally under the surface. I mean, we saw with the bombing of Beirut, all
Tunnels.
the tunnels, the system of tunnels that was revealed, that this is a time where all this darkness is coming into the world. So it doesn't mean that there's more darkness than before, but it means that it's more visible than before. We are now in the sort of spinning cycle of the washing machine, and everything that is not in integrity, that is not of love, that is not of the light, is being exposed so that it can be transmuted. So it's
Right.
actually a very exciting period that we're in, but we're right in the middle in 2020. And this is an incredible time. It's a very dangerous time, but it's a time where we have to be very vigilant, we have to be very clear, we have to have immense integrity, we have to have discernment because there's so much fake news, and that's going to go on until the end of November 2020, with Neptune retrograde in Pisces since June of 2020. So that's all a period where there's so much confusion, there's lies, deceit, fake everything, nothing is presented the way it really is. What is said to cure is said to kill you. What is said to kill you cures you. I mean, it's like everything is upside down right now. And we really have to listen to our inner voice. We have to listen to our intuition. And I feel astrology has so much to offer right now because we can clearly see in our own charts what is going on and how to use those cycles to our own advantage. Because we can't necessarily heal the world, but if we can heal ourselves and if we can be, strong and clear in ourselves and happy, most of it happy, because I think it's a time where so many people are so depressed, and yet
Right.
happiness raises our frequency.
And they're
And the
so
more we
angry too.
raise and angry, yeah, yeah, that's crazy. I mean, you see people snapping for ridiculous, I mean, seemingly ridiculous things, but it's all the frustration that that's boiling inside that comes up in very odd ways at odd times.
And the thing I don't think they understand is that the anger was already in them. They're just being triggered, so it's coming out. They think that all of this is the part that's making them angry. I'm like, well, if you didn't have it in you, it couldn't come out of you, right?
And that's a whole lesson of Saturn conjunct Pluto this year, is that all those things that we thought we were in control of, all of a sudden we realize we're not. And I'm seeing that in those spiritual groups, people who thought they were so advanced and so enlightened and so spiritual, all of a sudden are freaking out, are having fear, are snapping, are getting angry. It's all of this is it's good. I think it's a wonderful time because the truth of everybody is coming out.
Yeah,
And
you
now
have
we
to.
can't lie to ourselves.
Yeah, and you have to purge, right? You can't build your home on faulty ground. You have to clear out the dark, and so you can create from new, go to the light.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I have a lot of hope for the future. I really do, because I think it's a time where if we start to take responsibility that for our own life, and that whatever is happening in the world, somehow we have a responsibility in. And if we take care of our own home, our own circumstances, our own life, then that's going to boomerang, and that's going to have a ripple effect into the world, and that's going to affect everybody else.
So
So we
much,
have a
so
lot of
much.
power right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Got to feel empowered in order to create the life that you
And I
want.
feel that, to me, astrology is an incredible tool of empowerment. It's an incredible tool of enlightenment. It's really a chance to be completely in alignment with ourselves. And once we are in alignment with ourselves, once we are grounded and we know ourselves, because so many people don't know themselves, and astrology is like the most amazing psychological map, because we're not all equal. Like, for example, you can see in a chart if somebody will be better in a very detailed kind of 9 to 5 job, or needs to be very nomadic. You will see if somebody, does well with marriage or not. For example, Liz Taylor, if I had been her astrologer, I would have said, don't marry. You can have as many lovers as you want, just don't marry any of
Who?
them. And
Who did
Liz
you say?
Taylor,
Oh,
Elizabeth
Liz Taylor.
Taylor. Yeah, and look at that. She divorced 5 times. Poor woman. She was desperately trying to make it work, but she couldn't because her chart is not one for marriage.
But
She
what if?
needs to balance intimacy and freedom.
How does your life lessons come into play there. Maybe that's a life lesson she needed to learn, right? But it's so I'm
Maybe.
trying to get the understand, like, you're not going to get given all the information in life, right? You need to learn. Everyone's going to have to go through their hardships. They're going to have to learn. You're not
True.
so going to astrology or psychic and getting, you're not going to give all the information, right, to us, because we need to learn our lessons.
Well, I will give you everything I see. I mean, I'm not
I
hiding
mean, not
anything.
you.
And I
I
think,
mean,
you know, I
universe.
think, but I think, Kelly, I think we have access to everything. We really do. And true, we don't necessarily remember all our past lives. We don't remember all the details. Some do, not all. But it's the idea of having a roadmap. You know, when you do an astrological reading, it is as if instead of just randomly driving around and hoping to get to the address you're supposed to get to, you're going to have a roadmap, and then you can plan your journey and you can make your journey more interesting.
It's going to be a lot
And you will
smoother.
probably not lose time. So, for example, in the case of Elizabeth Taylor, well, if she had gone to an astrologer, maybe she did, I don't know, but if she had come to me, I
She
would have
probably went
told
to
her.
my astrologer.
I don't know. Well, if she had come to me, I would have said, look, you can absolutely have relationships. There's nothing wrong with that, but don't get legally married, you know, and enjoy and find the balance between intimacy and freedom, and don't try to fit into a mold that was created by society, because you're going to suffocate and need to get out of it. And
And
that's what happens.
how often would someone go see an astrologer when they're in this phase and they want to, have control of their life and understand
Well, I
what's coming up?
think, you know, from my experience, people come to see an astrologer when they are lost, when they don't know, you know, should they marry this person? Should they move to this place? They have different options to move to different places. Which one is the best? When they are starting a new job, when they feel stuck, when they feel that they have no horizon, when they have a series of hardships that happen and they don't understand why or what caused that, or just to know themselves better. A lot of people want to know themselves better, and that's a wonderful place to start. And I think it's more important than trying to figure out what is going to happen in the future. I think it's more important to know yourself, because once we know ourselves, as Alan Leo, who was a very great English astrologer in the 19th century, said, character is destiny. And it's true. You know, somebody who is an early riser, go-getter, hard worker is going to have a very different destiny from the one who's just a dreamer, an artist, and likes to stay in bed until noon every day, you know?
Right.
And it's true.
How does your shamanism and your psychic abilities and the numerology, and how does this all play together? Are they just completely separate services you
Well,
offer?
it is, well, numerology is the basis of astrology. I wouldn't really say that I'm psychic. I have visions from time to time, but I need an astrological chart to be able to say things to someone. I
Okay.
have intuition, like most people have, but I wouldn't say that I'm psychic per se. But when it comes to shamanism, shamanism is more energetic. So it's a very different approach, because in astrology, I will talk more. It's very mental because I'm reading, you know, charts, I'm reading something. Whereas in shamanism, I will rely a lot on my third eye, and I received rites and initiations from the Kero masters in Peru, and the Keros are seers. You become a seer when you are a shaman. So you see, you know, the field of a person. You sense where they are at, and you work energetically. So as a shaman, I like, for me, it balances out and it's very complementary, but it's a completely different part of my brain. When I'm a shaman, I'm in a different
Mode.
box in my brain than when I'm an astrologer.
Okay.
And as a shaman, I'm tracking, I'm listening, I'm much more receptive. When I'm an astrologer, I'm reading things and talking. In shamanism, it's more um, it's more, when I say tracking, it's like very much listening to energy, listening to how people speak, listening when you go out in your garden, listening to what animal crosses your path. Like, for example, the other night I was lying in bed and this huge owl landed on my balcony,
Oh,
and
that's
she
so
was
cool.
staring at me for an hour. We were staring at each other. We were just a meter away from each other. And it was the most
Wow.
incredible encounter. And there was a very profound message that came from that. And then I
Oh,
paid attention to my dreams. I journeyed in the middle world to encounter her and speak with her. You know, what was the message? What did she have to tell me?
what was it?
So that's, yeah.
What was the message? Can you share?
Well, there is many messages, but one message was to have incredible discernment, to be very, very clear, to take nothing at face value, because of course owls have very strong vision, and also to be like, you know, they. It's amazing when she flew away. I mean, her wings were enormous, and
Oh,
she flew
wow.
so silently into the night. It was incredible.
Oh, that's so cool.
So that was about also flying a little under the radar, and also that coming to very major crossroads right now, and there's going to be a very big life change,
And that
which
came
I'm
to
also
you
seeing in my chart.
when you were dreaming. That's how it came. Because I have messages, these birds are giving me messages.
When
I'm
I
like,
was journeying, so there's two different ways
oh,
because
journaling.
shamans live in different worlds. They live, you know, we travel to the underworld, to the middle world, to the upper world, and we retrieve information in those places. But also our dreams, like I keep a dream journal. I've kept a dream journal for years, decades actually. And I always am in the habit when I get up and wake up in the morning to write whatever I remember. And I keep track of those dreams because it gives me information on where I'm going, what is going on in my life, what I need to work on. Sometimes it gives me premonitions, and also because you can work with lucid dreaming, you can also start to become much more multidimensional in your waking hours. But journeying is slightly different because that's a sort of induced where you go places,
Okay.
and it's not guided imagery. You know, it's very different because when we travel to the underworld, there is a specific path to take that all the shamans have taken for hundreds and thousands of years. And there is a specific path to the middle world, there's a specific path to the upper world. And every time you go into one of those worlds, you're going to see slight changes. You know, the same as if you go away to do some errands and you come home and all of a sudden a book fell off a shelf, or the wind blew something through the window and the vase broke, or you know, so there's always going to be little differences. Even if it's always the same house you're returning to, there's always little changes that occur. And that's the same when you go to these worlds, and that's why these are, to me, real worlds and not a figment of our imagination. They are real places where real things happen. And that makes a shaman in ancient civilizations, and still today the shaman was a priest, was a healer, was the psychotherapist, was the counselor, was the coach, was pretty much everything, was very central to society because he could get information on where to go for rain, where to go for food, where to start the journey, where to stop the journey, where to establish a village. All those things were the dominion of the shaman.
So you have to be pretty open and connected, I would think, to become a shaman. There's not anyone off the street is going to go to school and become a shaman and be successful
Oh,
at it.
you learn. No, you can learn. I have a school, a shamanic school, and I already have two schools that graduated, and I'm very proud of my students, and they have become amazing human beings, and they are they have become bigger than life, and they are using everything that we learned and all the rites and initiations that I shared with them in their daily lives, and their lives are incredible. I mean, it has changed their lives completely.
Is Tina one of them?
Yes, she is. Yes, she
Oh,
is.
I really
Yes,
like her. She's such a sweet lady, Tina
yes.
Crystal.
Oh, she's amazing and she's very gifted. So she just started with me, and of course, with the virus, we had to interrupt or postpone some of the classes. But I know she's going to be a very, very successful shaman. She has all the ingredients for that.
Yeah, and she does the Akashic readings right now, which is I'm going to ask you
Yes,
about
she does.
too. Can you
Yes.
tell us what an Akashic reading is, and who are you talking to? Where are you getting the information, and how does it work? And what is
Well, as a shaman and as an astrologer in the chart, I can see, the past lives of a person. It's more the essence of the past lives rather than just a specific past life, although I do get visions sometimes and of a specific lifetime, but only if it's really relevant to the life of a person right now. And I get that a lot, for example, in relationship charts when you are comparing two charts and you are trying to see, what are the conflicts or the areas of challenge, then I will usually get a vision that helps to understand where this came from. But in shamanism, there's actually a journey in the underworld. There's a specific place you can go to visit your past lives, to go and see your past lives. So, but really, I think looking at our past lives is only really relevant if it's going to help us in this lifetime. That, a lot of people want to know and they want to have been this extraordinary, they were Mary Magdalene, they were Cleopatra, they were Caesar, they were, well, I don't know if that's necessarily always true, because there was only one being who had that kind of incarnation. But what is important is how we live this lifetime. So I think it can be valuable to understand where certain things are coming from in the past in order to shift the present. For example, somebody who drowned in another life and who are deadly afraid of water in this lifetime. Well, it would make sense to revisit that lifetime to unearth that so that in this lifetime they can get over their fear and swim without feeling that the same is going to happen again. Or somebody who has an obesity problem and who starved in another lifetime, and in this lifetime they can't get enough food and they keep stuffing themselves because they have this such a deep memory of having lacked food that in this lifetime it still stays with them. So in those instances, it would be very useful to understand, because then they can start to make peace
right?
and we resolve the past and we don't have to keep carrying the past into the present, because then we are robbing ourselves of a further evolution that we could have, or becoming more efficient in our use of this lifetime.
Yeah, I didn't like when I did my session with Tina. It wasn't about past lives, which is good. She didn't even bring it up because I that's not why I was doing it. But she would just so she was I think she was talking to my spirit guides from my understanding. And then she just said, "This is the message from your spirit guides." And then she's like, "Do you have any questions that you want to ask about your life?" I didn't even think about past lives because I'm not interested in that. But so it's not just for past lives, right? The Akashic reading.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I don't exactly know what she does or how she does it, but I would say that it's more, I mean, I can tell you just how I work with, with past lives, but I think it's important to really focus on this lifetime. It's really the most important is the present, is who we
I
are
agree.
now. And because that is also going to determine our future, that's also going to clear some of our past and transform things that need to be transformed.
I totally agree. I have another question on um okay, so we come in we're this infinite being, like we're all an extension of God, the universe, right? And we came into this 3D world as a human being, and we're experiencing world as a human, and we get all these programs from our childhood and from life, and we have these programming and beliefs about life. And why can't we just let it all go and be like the godlike that we are, the energy that we are, this infinite being? And it's so hard to let go of this programming, like you were told in a child, like you were taught to be scared of water, and to this day you're still scared of water, and it's really hard to let that go. Like, why is that so hard to
Mhm.
let go?
Well, because we are creatures of reflection and memory, and this is the whole purpose of going through the medicine wheel. This is what we do in the shaman school, is that we go through the four directions, the south, the west, the north, and the east. And in the south, we start to let go of all these conditionings. This is
Yeah.
associated to serpent, so we shed the skin. And we start to dissociate what is the truth of me and what is the conditioning, because I had a weird upbringing because we were traveling all the time, but my mother was French, my father was Finnish. So already I had two cultures that were quite different. Even though they were both European, Finns and French are very different kinds of people with a very different vision of life, a very different understanding of, the French speak like nonstop, whereas the Finns are very silent, and
Right.
the French love to
So different.
debate, and the Finns like peace. The French like socializing, the Finns hate socializing. I mean, there's all these things that when we grow up in an environment that our family is a certain way, our education in school is a certain way, the society, the country, every country has a certain understanding of life. If you're born American or Chinese, you're going to have a very different perception of life, or
Right.
how to live your life, or what is acceptable and what is not, for example.
And all these different
So, and
religions
of
and
course, your religion and all your race, I mean, all of that
everything.
plays a role. So in the south, in serpent, we start to shed all those skins. We start to let go of that. And then when we reach the west direction, which is jaguar, puma, the one who's the dark in the night and does his work without attracting any attention, then we are becoming friends with death, and we are learning to live with death and to make death our ally. And then when we reach the north, which is hummingbird, we are going to release. We're going to start to move into the mythical, into the prophecies, into the legends. We are going to make our life bigger than just our little life. We are going to fit into cosmology. We're going to fit into a universal understanding of archetypal reality. And then when we reach the east, which is eagle condor, then it's a poof state. It's a state of enlightenment where there is no story. We have let go of all our stories. So it is a process that is very important, and the process of becoming a shaman is that you become more and more transparent. So you're not projecting your luggage onto other people.
Right.
You recognize, you take responsibility for so it doesn't mean you're perfect, but if you get angry, you take responsibility for your anger. You take responsibility for your frustration.
Your
You take
reaction.
responsibility for the creation that you have manifested in your life. And what I don't like in my life, let me change it, and if I can't change it, let me accept it and deal with it like that. Like the Keros who initiated me in Peru, they were in the glaciers, up in the glaciers until 1954. And in 1954, they had a vision that if they didn't come down and start to initiate little brother, little sister, us, the world was going to oblivion. So they came down, they started initiating a few people, but they laugh when you talk about protection, because they're like, why would you protect yourself from what? What is outside is a reflection of what is inside. So why would I want to protect myself from myself? I mean, the only way is to go within and to transform your perception of your reality, and your outer reality is going to change. And
Yeah.
that's true today. All those things that are collapsing in society, they're also there to help us see, well, how did we globally, individually create those dramas? How can we change it by thinking differently now?
Yeah, it's a good point. With all this stuff going on right now, how can people get to, are we going to have, like, we're on this roller coaster right now. It's crazy. Are we going to have a soft landing by the end of the year? or are you just gonna be thrown into the abyss and everyone's gonna
I
die?
no, we won't. It was interesting because the curious, when they were asked what is going on right now, they have their method of divination is to throw coca leaves. So they were throwing coca leaves, and they said that the three worlds, the upper world, the middle world, the underworld, are collapsing into each other right now, which is a very dangerous situation. But that there's going to be two paths, and one path which is where people are disconnected from Mother Earth, disconnected from themselves, their hearts and their minds are not functioning together, and they are completely out of integrity. Well, those are going to have a rockier and rockier path until it will go into oblivion, and their lives are going to be more and more and more difficult and painful. But there is another path, and those of us who are honoring Mother Earth, doing ceremonies, connecting to our heart, taking responsibility, living with integrity, loving each other, being solidary of each other as much as possible, our lives are going to become better and better. And I absolutely see that around me. That those people who just insist on wanting to take things, it's not going well for them. I mean, you see all these pedophile rings and all these, beings who have been abusing others. Well, it's not going so well for them right now. And it's
Right.
going to get worse.
Do
It
you
is
think
going to get worse.
over?
Whereas for us, I think our life is becoming better. I don't know about yours, Kelly, but mine is definitely going better.
No, I've had a great year. Yeah, is that that's the whole thing though. If you're not centered in if you don't know how to get to a place of being balanced and connecting to source, it's pretty miserable. Like I can't imagine not being
Exactly.
able to do that.
I know. And people who don't believe in the divinity, don't believe in the goddess, don't believe in that we are in a world that has meaning, where everything has a soul, everything is alive, everything has a message and a teaching. I mean, it's magical. That's what I love about shamanism, is that we live in a world where everything speaks, everything has a message, everything has a teaching for us. Whether it's a tree, whether it's a stone, whether it's an animal, whether it's a wind or lightning or all of that, everything is alive and bursting with something for us to understand.
What are your thoughts on plant medicine? I did plant medicine twice. I did ayahuasca and mushrooms in the past year, maybe a year and a half,
Hmm.
and I had a violent experience with it. I was shaking, I was sweating, it was miserable. The worst thing I've ever gone through. And I'm not a drug person. I don't like doing. I don't like feeling out of control. I don't. I am not into it. Maybe that's why my body's just like, what are you doing? Don't do this. But I don't know anyone else who's had that crazy experience. And I don't know if that's part of your shamanism that you offer to your
No,
people.
it isn't. The Keros don't use ayahuasca or San Pedro. Ayahuasca is the vine of death, that's what it means. And it's a sort of fashion right now. And in Peru, whenever I go to Peru, which normally is every year, I have, except this year because of the travel ban. But I'm always offered ayahuasca, and I've always said no, and I will never do that. And I don't feel it's necessary, and there's always a price to pay. And ayahuasca can be also extremely dangerous. I mean, some people have literally gone mad. So for you, Kelly, even though you had a difficult experience because you are a conscious person and you are on a spiritual path, it didn't go into extremes. But I've seen people kill people on ayahuasca. I've seen people go crazy, or kill themselves or hurt themselves really badly. So it's really not necessary. This is a medicine, but it's a medicine with a price, and there's always a price to pay. And if we do our work correctly, and we just and of course it may take a little longer, but it's going to be really our work. And I don't feel there is any real shortcut to enlightenment. We have to do our homework. We
And that's
can't
what they
afford
say. It
not
is a
to.
shortcut, right? The people who talk about ayahuasca kind of, because I think that's their experience. They have great I don't see any payback for them. They just seem like they have a great experience. They have these visions of, maybe they're not as clear connecting the source, so ayahuasca helps them get to connect. I don't know what it is, but they
You
seem like
know,
they have a great experience.
well, I've also heard people who had a very horrible experience and who never really completely returned from it.
Oh no,
You
I'm
know, they
returning. I'm okay
left.
now.
Okay, good. But I have a friend, it took him 3 months to return from an ayahuasca trip. And he described the horror. He felt like he was in a tunnel and he was trying to get back to his body and he couldn't. It took him 3 months to be able to return to his body. So that was very scary, and it was somebody who was very strong, and it was somebody who was, psychotherapist himself. He's not a shaman, but he's a psychotherapist, and it was very very intense. So I don't think it's necessary to do that, and the way it's done most of the time, it's like it's done very quickly. They pick you up at your hotel at 6 p.m., take your $100, you drink this thing, and then they drop you off, and they don't care what happens to you after. And it should really be done in a ritual way with somebody you absolutely trust, who's a very strong shaman. You should fast before for at least a few weeks. I mean, there's a big protocol that needs to be respected to do it properly.
Yeah, I did
And it takes time.
yeah,
Yeah.
I went to Peru. I did it in Iquitos, Peru, and I was there for 7 days or 10 days. I can't remember, but yeah. But regardless, I think I did it the right
What,
way. It just wasn't.
what prompted you to do that, if I may
Um,
ask?
yeah, of course. My sister-in-law, my ex-sister-in-law, had done it, and she had amazing results. And then right around the time, right after she told me about it, I all these different people started popping up that were in this group on Facebook that I had known, and everyone was talking about how great ayahuasca is and how these amazing experiences. And I'm watching all these YouTube videos, and everyone's like, it's life changing. You clear so many things that you might be holding on to that are blocking you, beliefs or programming, and you can get visions of where your next steps are in life. And it
Hmm.
just sounded amazing. And then I'm like, well, I didn't have that experience. There was none of that. I had evil clowns and
Yeah.
people killing me and tarantulas. It was, it was weird. Oh, I don't want to do it again. I'm never going to do it again. I'm with you. You don't need it. If you can
Yeah,
connect, and there's no shortcuts, like you say,
absolutely.
just carry on, be centered, balanced, live a happy life, and stop trying to find a shortcut.
Exactly. Exactly, because in the end, if enlightenment were easy, we would all be enlightened. There would be no merit in it. We have to do our homework. We have to take responsibility. We have to go within. And that's the whole purpose of the medicine wheel, that as you go through the medicine wheel, you're going to encounter aspects of yourself that will be embarrassing, that will be disturbing, that will be dark, that you may not be happy to see. And yet, that is how we are able to be enlightened, by releasing consciously all those things. So a vision, it's nice to get a vision, but it's almost like being assisted. It's almost like being spoon fed something that's exciting. We are in such a visual society. We want visuals, we want video games, we want TV, we want films, we want images. And in the end, it's like watching a nice movie. It can make you think. It can, in a way, maybe change your life depending on what the movie was about. But you still have to do your work, even though
Right.
you got this
There's no
great
shortcut.
vision. Yeah. So, I've never touched ayahuasca, and as I said, I never will. I just don't see the point. I think
Right.
there's too much. The price to pay is too heavy as opposed to the gift that it may give you, I
Yeah.
think.
Oh, I'm with you. Yeah, I'm not. You don't get any argument from me.
But that's a funny thing because everybody always asks me that. That's like the one question. Oh, you've been to Peru, you're a shaman, do you do ayahuasca? That's always the first
It's
question.
like a fad right now.
It is. Well, that's exactly what it is. And in Peru, the sorcerers, because it's usually not shamans, but sorcerers found a very easy way to make a lot of money with very little effort.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I learned my lesson. I won't be doing it again.
Good.
Have you done any readings for the rest of the year on, like, can you see things like how the election is going to go? I know that's very specific. Or can you just see like
You
the
know,
things we're in pretty
there's
much?
so many retrogrades right now, and starting on the 15th of August, Uranus is going to be retrograde all the way till January. So when planets are retrograde, it means their principle is going inward, but this also means chaos, and it means revisiting things we have forgotten. And retrograde, it looks like the planet seems to be going backwards as against the background of the stars, which is, of course, an optical illusion because of the various speeds of the planets as opposed to our speed on planet Earth. So the only two planets that are, or luminaries that are never retrograde are the Sun and the Moon. All the others can be retrograde. And of course, Mercury retrograde is very famous. But what I see for the election is that there's going to be a big mess. It's really going to be a big mess. There's going to be a lot of confusion. I believe we might be either on lockdown, or there may be something that forces people to, not be able to physically go to a place where we can vote. And I believe there's going to be a lot of either lost ballots or ballots that are counted twice, or ballots that get, disappear by enchantment. I mean, there's going to be a lot of chaos
Right.
happening. And I think there's going to be a lot of anger also in the next 6 months, starting on the 15th of August. I mean, that's all the way till the 14th of January of next year, 2021. There's going to be a lot of social unrest. There's going to be a lot of people rebelling against freedoms being taken away. There's going to be riots. There's going to be, especially when Mars comes retrograde, which only happens every 2 years, and that's going to start in September. There's going to be an Aries in its own sign. So there's really going to be a sense of anger. There's going to be violence. There's going to be more, there could be issues, confrontations with the police, with the army. It's the fall is going to be pretty intense. That's what I see,
It's rough. That's
you
why
know.
people got to get centered and balanced and learn how to not react, right? And then,
And exactly, and we need to remain very, this too shall pass. All of this shall pass at one point. And we only have, I would say, until the end of 2022 so we are in the middle of that period, 2017, 2022. But it's a time of owning our truth, of being as positive as possible. I would say ditch your TV, don't watch the news, try,
right.
what is really important, you will hear it anyway. And nowadays, everybody, I don't know about you, but I know everybody is sending me videos and stuff on Messenger, on Facebook, on, every possible way. So we are supporting each other like that. But I think it's important to stay leveled, to stay happy, to stay positive, to be empowered, to work on ourselves, and to keep releasing all those fears, all that negativity, to do whatever it takes to keep our environment clear and transparent, and let go of toxic people, because we don't need those right now. There's so many of those out there.
Right. And
Like the
it's,
other day, I'm standing in line in this store, and this guy, I was daydreaming, and I'm like 4 feet away from the person in front of me, and this guy starts yelling at me, and then, oh, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. I'm like, yes, you will. Um, we all will die one day, And it's not
hopefully
because
not in
I'm
the
four
next
feet
5 minutes.
away. And it's not because I'm 4 feet away that he's going to die more than if I'm 6 feet away. I mean,
Oh, I didn't know
it's,
what you meant. Oh, because you were too close to him.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot, there's so much insanity going on right now. There's so much lack of common sense. There's so many, like, it amazes me. Like, you can get, for example, that virus between the door and your table in a restaurant, and once you're at the table, you can't get it anymore. Or on the
That's
25th
true.
of March,
That's
I was
scientifically
traveling.
backed.
I was traveling from Finland back to the US. It was just the beginning of the pandemic, and Charles de Gaulle in Paris was completely empty. All the stores were closed. People were literally wearing garbage bags. They were so freaked out, and
Uh,
oh, it was awful. And then they packed us all like sardines, in the little bus that went from terminal to terminal. But then as soon as we got to
hello.
the escalator, we had to leave 2 meters with the person in front. It's like, okay, so in the bus, I won't get it, but in the elevator, in the escalator, I will. At my table, I won't, but
Uh,
between the door and my table, I will. It's like, come on.
yeah,
So
it's such a
there's so
scam.
much. Well, I don't think it's entirely a scam in the sense that,
That part.
COVID does exist and some people did get sick. But what I think is a scam is that, or a hoax, is that, first of all, not as many people died of it as we are being told. And less people died of COVID than died of the flu, for one. And second, we shut the whole world down and close businesses and prevent people from making a living
That's
because
the
the
scam.
flu season,
Right.
So I think there's a lot of exaggeration that is happening, and
Someone's
um,
benefiting
and
from
there
it.
is and there's a whole different agenda behind that. But the whole thing also is that nature gets to rest. That was good. I started seeing quails and rabbits in my garden, so that was nice. There
Oh,
were
and
less
Albuquerque, you have.
chemtrails. Yeah. Yes.
I never saw any
That was
rabbits when I lived
beautiful.
in.
Oh, I have tons of rabbits and I have families of quails. It's so sweet. And you
Aw,
see less chemtrails and you see less pollution and people were more tranquil because we gained time. We were not commuting every day. So there were very good things that came. We had to connect with our group. I never connected with so many people that during this period of being grounded. It was incredible because
there
people
are a
started
lot of
calling each
benefits.
other. Yeah, we met.
Yeah,
But for example, you get to call your friends because you have more time. You get to do things you never have time for. I started reading books that were on my shelf and that I hadn't had time to read. I started watching documentaries. I started
yeah,
exploring YouTube. All the resources of YouTube are incredible. So
I
it
know.
was, so in many ways, it's a reset for humanity. So it's not all bad. I think it's actually really good that all of a sudden
Yes.
we have to think differently. We have to see where our priorities are. Because even if you have millions in the bank, which I don't, but if you did, and there is a pandemic, well, what do you do with that? It's not going to help you.
Right. No,
So
it's all your
what is
mindset.
important?
You gotta
Exactly.
look at what the good instead of focusing on the negative.
Exactly.
So
And a
true,
lot of
so
good
true.
came out of this. A
So
lot.
I gotta get a reading from you sometime.
And I would love that. You will love it.
That would be
Because
fun.
when I do a reading, I talk about the essence of your past lives, and then I talk also about the purpose of your lifetime, and then I talk about the cycles you are in, and some can go 10, 15 years in time. They can be quite long. And that's a very exciting thing. I will give you a map of the United States and map of the world with the good places for love, money, enlightenment for you. That's why I live in Arizona. It's my Venus line here. So I'm
Oh,
always very
nice.
happy here. And these maps are valid your entire life and they're unique to you. And that's why people are doing so in a location, they move and all of a sudden they become wealthy, famous, they find the love of their lives, everything starts to happen. And if you look at their lines, it's exactly what is happening.
Unless they take free will into their hands and they go screw it all up. Right?
Well, that happens too. Some people are very good at sabotaging themselves.
Yes. I have experience in that.
But hopefully, most people don't do that to themselves. That would be
Yeah,
sad.
true. But like when you're giving the reading, will you give specifics like in the next year I see you moving
Yes.
to Colorado and then
Well, I won't say moving to Colorado, but I say, for example, such and such a period, like several periods in a year, these are very good for moving, or this is a good time to renovate your house, or this is a time to rearrange your furniture. So there's different ways. You don't necessarily need to move. Sometimes it can be just painting the house again or throwing stuff out, you know.
Change.
Or, for example, such and such a date, it's a good time for a promotion at work or to start your own business or to expand on your present business. Or, for example, such and such a time is a very good time for socializing, accepting invitations, going out, attending elegant events, meeting people, making new friends, those kinds of things.
Oh, I understand. So there's no specifics involved. It's but it's
Well,
generalities to give you a guideline.
there is specifics, but of course, if you want to know the name, address, phone number, social
Not that
security
much.
number of your prospective husband, I'm not going to give you that. Some people have asked me though. Some people have
Or
really asked me, and I'm like, no.
or what if someone said they want to? When are
Or
they
the
going to meet
willing.
someone?
Well, I can tell you the periods where it's going to be more probable for you to meet someone. And I will also give you the description of the person who would be best suited for you.
Okay.
But that's all. I won't give you his phone number, his address, and
That's
his name.
yeah, exactly. Why not? But the
I
people.
wish. But I wish. I so wish I had a magic wand and I could give you like the love of your life. You
uh,
could be wealthy. I would be using it every day, 24/7. But
yeah,
I can't.
you'd be a millionaire then.
Well, I don't know. Well, maybe, if I could see that in my chart, then I wouldn't need to even work anymore.
Yeah, but the people who are good at investing, they use it, right? They use astrology to
They
know.
do. I actually have a client who's a very big investor, and he comes regularly for astrological updates, and he writes religiously the periods where he should avoid investing, what he should be investing in, and all that. And it's been working for him.
Can you give him that
So,
information? What he should be in, like
yeah.
if you're going to buy stocks or bonds or precious
Well, I won't
metals or.
go into such details because I'm not an investor myself, so it's not something I know. I understand even, but I will give him the periods where he should be careful, the periods where he can move forward and acquire
Oh,
new things.
okay.
And I can tell him, for example, I can tell you if is it better to acquire gold or is it better to acquire land or is it better to, save
You
what
can
you
tell
have and
those
just be
things.
cautious. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
A
Awesome.
chart can give a lot of information. So you have to be careful whom you give your date, time, and place of birth to because it can reveal quite a lot of things about you.
Oh, okay.
So you
Well,
need
now
to
you know.
be with an astrologer who has integrity. That's how I became an astrologer. I didn't trust anybody and I wanted my chart to be read. So I thought, well, being a Capricorn, I'm going to help myself. And that's how I began.
Well, since I'm Capricorn, you can just tell me what I need to know. But we're
You
not
can
born on the
trust me.
same time. No, I want to. You held up a book when we before we started recording. Can you tell people about
Yes.
what your book is? And
Astrology for Enlightenment. It was published by Simon and Schuster, and it's a book. Actually, they asked me to write it as an encyclopedia, and I was actually not even writing a book at the time. It's Simon and Schuster who contacted me, and they asked me to write this book.
nice.
And what I did, it's a very revolutionary book because instead of being one sign and 10 planets, we are really all the signs and all the planets. So I explain how each sign can use the other 11 signs for enlightenment. And also how we can learn astrology by observing nature, because that's how the Chaldeans discovered the rules of astrology. They realized when somebody is born at a certain time, this is what was going on in nature, this is how it impacts that person, or that person is the same as what is going on in nature at that time. So I did a huge amount of research. I went through countless astrology books from past centuries and particularly the Middle Ages. And because the law of association was very strong, and as time went, it became just a psychological description of the various signs. And there was no longer, because everything has a signature. For example, walls, are Saturn, are ruled by Saturn. Teeth, skeleton is ruled by Saturn. Nails ruled by Saturn. The heart, the stomach is ruled by the moon. The heart is ruled by, by the sun. So there is all those aspects of our physical body. There's aspects of life around us. For example, even characters, cartoon characters, Lucy and Charlie Brown, she's typically Sagittarius. Charlie Brown is typically Libra. Linus is typically Cancer, Pippi Longstocking, she's a Sag too, Sagittarius, and Merlin is a Capricorn. You can start to look at the character of all those, how they act and how they are, and you will learn more. So it's not some stuff that we got out of a magic hat. It's really coming from the observation of what is going on. And the more you understand those, the connections with the musical notes, with taste, with colors, with shapes, with animals, plants, trees, flowers, archetypes, you're going to be able to constantly learn about astrology.
I love it. I'll just check out your book definitely and learn. There's so
Yeah.
much I don't know much, so I
And
have a
if you
lot to
order
learn.
it from my website, michellekaren.com, I will sign it for you and I'll send it to you signed.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'll put all your information in the description of the video so people know how to
Thank you
contact
very
you.
much. Thank
So
you.
exciting. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. I really enjoyed it.
You too, Kelly. You look
Uh,
very beautiful, by the way. You're
oh,
very
thank you.
tanned. It's nice.
I'm in
It's nice that it's
California.
summer.
It's probably next to the pink. It makes me look more tan.
Yeah, it's very nice. Very nice.
Thank you so much. I hope to talk to you soon.
Yes, thank you very much, Kelly. It was
All
really a
right.
pleasure to be
Yeah,
with you,
definitely.
interviewed by you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.